Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Ted, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Everybody, today's guest is Ted Jenkin, the president of Exit Stage Left Advisors and co-founder of Oxygen Financial. Ted's got over 30 years in financial services. He started at Amex and growing Oxygen to $2 billion in assets under management. Then Ted launched Exit Stage Left Advisors in 2022 to guide business owners through sell-side mergers and acquisitions. And they've got some interesting things they've been working on. We were just chatting about. We'd love to share that with you guys. They built a proprietary exit framework that they use throughout the business. We'd love to learn more about that as well. So Ted, thank you so much for being here, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate that intro because people always ask me, like, how did I get to be an entrepreneur? And I spent half my life in corporate America. And maybe like some people listening to this, it's like, gosh, when's the right time to jump from corporate America and leave the crack of making that W-2 income? And I worked for a big company, American Express, that spun out a publicly traded company called Ameriprise Financial. So anybody who knows Ameriprise Financial, it actually was American Express. Very rarely does a publicly traded company spin out a publicly traded company. And after it did it, it was like the beginning of the end for me. I knew I couldn't work for them. And I thought, what am I going to do? Am I going to do another corporate job? Am I going to do my own thing? And then it dawned on me at 38 years old that nobody was servicing the X and Y generation. And so when you see that logo, I put an O, and that's how that name Oxygen came about. It was OXY Gen. It was Oxygen Financial because I wanted to develop a financial services company specifically for the X and Y generation. So I made the offices, man, like nobody's ever seen before. We had a bar serving drinks. I had Yoo-hoo and Cheerwine. I had physical oxygen bars where people could take oxygen like they would in Las Vegas. And I said, if I created an experience for younger people where they were like, this isn't my parents' financial planning firm. There's no Andy Warhol in the lobby. There's no three guys in ties and suits talking down to me. And I built that company from 2008 to 2019 to $20 million of revenue. And without acquisition, I did it all organically.
That's amazing.
And then in 2019, I had a company approach me. It was the first time I was ever approached by private equity. This is 6 years ago. And they said, we love your model. We're doing a big acquisition strategy. We want to acquire you. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Let's have the conversation. So this big company, Warburg Pincus in New York City, we had this conversation and they said, we're going to pay you 12 times cash flow on your business. And I thought, what? You got to be, come on. Where's the cameras? Where are they? And, I ended up going through it. I obviously learned a lot in the process, and I had a massive 8-figure exit in that business. Simultaneously, I had built a social media company doing social media for financial advisors and attorneys. I did content, I did websites. And about a year later, that company got acquired as well. So in 2 years, I sold 2 of my own companies. And this is what got me into doing Exit Stage Left Advisors that, I had friends of mine, entrepreneurs that I knew, and they said, hey, man, it seems like you got a pretty good life. So you sold your businesses. You think you could help me sell mine? And from everything I learned, which I did a lot of good things, but also I made some mistakes. I took all of that and we started to build a team to develop a process to help owners get the single best outcome for their business, which, mind you, is not always the most amount of money. It's just the single best outcome for their business. And that's how it all started.
I have a lot of questions. That's amazing. That's a cool story. So, before I forget, what was it about that model that made it so interesting at Oxygen that made it attractive or made it grow so quickly?
So I had a theory, and by the way, much like entrepreneurs that are probably on here, this business is any business is part data, part hunch, right? It's like being a detective, and I had a hunch that what was wrong in the business is that younger people wanted to buy financial planning like they would buy a Netflix subscription. So I copied the idea of Netflix and said, hey, we're not going to charge you like some big retainer or anything like that. Pay us a subscription fee. It's either $99, $199, or $299, and you get unlimited amounts of X, advice, tax planning, and and young people ate it up. And we didn't even ask them about managing their money. But then after about a year, people said, you guys will manage my money. I don't want to do it, right? And so then we started managing money for people, and it turned into a really great model. And what I learned is that younger people, now a little bit older, wanted everything in one place, right? And we developed an area to do their taxes, a place to write up their wills. We had concierge services when they were going on a trip. They could call us, or they needed a watch broker. And everyone's like, this is just cool, and it's easy, and you guys just take care of it all. And it worked out to be a great model. But the subscription part, nobody was doing in the business via credit card, and we invented it in 2008.
That's awesome. I think the thread, at least for me, the thread that I see there is like trust. Once they trust you, then like, all right, man, I already trust you. What else can you do for me? Now, I don't have to go look for somebody else, So whether it's your taxes or whatever, it's like, it's so big.
Well, and I'll tell you something funny, which was an unintended consequence because we weren't going after old people. But there's a magical age, and I'm going to tell you what I think it is, where the parents start to actually think their kids know something. And that age is about 45. Somewhere around 45, when parents are in their 70s, they start saying, you know what? My kid's not so bad. They're pretty smart. Maybe I should.
It takes that long?
It takes a long time.
That's amazing.
And so we had a lot of kids that started to say, listen, I know you don't work with older people, but would you mind working with my mom and dad? And these moms and dads had millions and millions of dollars. And they said, we're not all that happy with Morgan Stanley or Merrill or UBS and just tired of it. And people just really loved doing business with us. And we did a lot of branding locally. We did a lot of fun events. We were just a fun company to be around because financial stuff is heavy and always feels tense. And I think we just made it fun. Like, we never had a financial magazine in our office. Every magazine was non-financial. No Wall Street Journal, no Forbes, no Fortune. Just wanted people to get away from it. Number one drink was Yoo-Hoo. I don't know what it was, but like, I feel like people that are in their 50s today, like, remember as a kid when they had that chocolate flavored water and Mellow Yellow we served and Sunkissed and just stuff that people are like, oh, I hadn't had one of those in years. And people loved it.
That's funny. You mentioned another thing too. You mentioned like the mistakes that people go through when selling their business. And I'm sure a lot of people in our community and people listening would probably want to understand what those are so they don't make them. What are the mistakes that you see people make when they go to sell their business?
Yeah, well, first of all, the two big pillars of this is, number one, you better have your legal documents in place. Like, I did not realize how many legal documents they would ask me for. And what I mean by that is they wanted to see everybody's employment agreement. They wanted to see every 1099 contractor agreement. They wanted my operating agreement. They wanted my vendor contracts for my copier person and the lease for the building. And so a great example is I owned my own building and I was undercharging myself rent because I wanted rent to stay lower in the business. So when they said, hey, what's the cash flow in the business? I said, it's this. And they said, well, if the rent's $4,000 a month, are you going to write us a lease for the next 5 years at $4,000 a month? And I'm like, no way. It's got to be way higher than that. And they go, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We either get a lease at $4,000 a month, or it's got to be the $6,000 a month, and we reduce the purchase price of the business. And I thought, well, that was dumb. Your financials, I had my kids on payroll. My wife was on payroll. I buried so many expenses, which is fine, but I didn't really clean it up as much as I should have a year before I sold it, or maybe two. Yeah. Because in the end, you're going to have to explain. It's like, will the real EBITDA please stand up?
Yeah.
And you're going to need to be able to explain that. And I didn't think about that. And then the last thing is there's a real decision for every owner on here if they sell as to whether they roll stock, meaning they take some stock in the new company or not. And I'm going to tell you that if you even have an itch, like a tiny little bug bite itch to stay in the business for the next 3 to 5 years, do not underestimate how valuable that stock will be in 5 years. Unfortunately, I only took 20% in stock. And I say that unfortunately because 4.5 years later, I got back $4 for every $1 I took in stock.
Wow.
Yeah. And in most of these, by the way, it's rarely going to be less than 3. In a lot of cases, it's going to be 4. And so you tell me what investment you have where you can take $5 million of your money and 4 years later, it's going to be $15 to $20 million. Even if you held the company, you probably still can't do it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't underestimate the power of private equity that way.
Wow. Yeah, that's a damn good return. So I'm sure you talk to lots of different companies out there. Some are having great revenue, great EBITDA. Maybe they're ready to sell. Others not so much. For those that aren't, they think they are, maybe they don't. How do you work with them? Do you have ways that you help them along that journey and prepare to get ready to sell?
No. I have really started to try to surround myself with great people that are great in their lanes. And what I mean by that is that every business has a weakness. Maybe their weakness is they don't have a great operating system. And there are great coaches, consultants, and people that can help businesses develop operating systems. Maybe they have a weak management bench and they need to find consultants or people that can help them learn how to lead and build a solid generation 2 or generation 3 in the business. Maybe their revenue has stalled and they need to get around either a marketing consultant or a pricing consultant. So what I can do is tell them, listen, here are the 2 bottlenecks, the 2 problems I see. And even if I did take you to market, you're not going to be happy. Yeah. Because I don't need to make a paycheck tomorrow. So I'm not desperate to sell somebody's business to just make a sale. I'd rather get them sold the way it's best for them. And in some cases, it doesn't make sense to sell now and maybe not for 3 years. So you have to get them around the right people. Maybe their accounting team was good when they started the business and they've kind of kept the accountant because it's their buddy, their pal, their friend, but they're just not really that great of an accounting firm. Or they need a real business attorney because they, great examples in home services. You got a guy that owns an electrical company and I ask him, well, how many employees do you have? He goes, 1. Well, how the hell do you do $20 million of revenue with 1 employee? He's like, well, I got all these subcontractors. Right. Okay. When I sell your company, how am I going to convince somebody that all these subcontractors are going to stay? Oh, well, they've known me forever. Yeah, they've known you forever. When you sell, if they all leave, the business is in big trouble. So trying to help those owners understand what that discussion is going to look like is important to help them to get to the right people to fix those problems.
It's interesting. I was just at a conference and talking to a guy. You mentioned the subcontractor thing. I think it's from what I've seen, it's really industry specific. So within the Windows space, for example, they were saying it's just the way the industry works. Everybody uses subcontractors. Even the companies that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, it's still sub-based. Right. So essentially those companies are just sales and marketing exercises. It's just your operations, but the people actually doing the work are all subs.
Right. And that's what your issue can be. Look, I was an owner of multiple companies and I still am. So I get it. People are going to be listening to this and go, Ted, I don't want to W-2 people because I got to pay payroll taxes and then I got to pay benefits and it's going to cut down on my profit. But you're going to pay now or pay later, right? When you're down the road and somebody says, okay, who's the key people in the company? Oh, it's Jack. Jack's my key guy. He does all the work on the Windows, right? Okay, well, we need to get him on an employment contract. Well, he's not going to do that. He's been his own contractor forever. Well, what makes me think he won't just take all the business himself once you leave?
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are, people don't think about it. I'll give you a different example. I had an owner in a golf cart business, but this is true in a lot of businesses, that $1 million of his sales were cash, right? And so he's like, I'm pumped. I do 20 million a year, but I really do 21 $1 million is cash. And I go, well, nobody's going to buy cash. Well, why not? Because you got it in your safe. Well, we'll just tell them that it's cash. And I go, okay, so number one, you're going to tell a buyer you've cheated the IRS, and they shouldn't be worried about that when they take over your business in case of an audit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it's like, what are we, the Sopranos? I'm just going to take your word that. And so if you take cash, my only recommendation is, I don't care what the business is, a year or two before you sell, just pay the taxes, report the cash so you can show the real revenue in the business, because nobody's going to buy your cash.
Yeah. 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 You want to get that multiple up. Let's talk about your exit framework. So what is that? And how does that apply to the companies you work with?
So we've developed an 11-point or 11-step process to sell businesses. From people we sign, we're at a 90% plus close rate, which I think in this industry is rare. Number one, we probably spend 90 days to 120 days before we take somebody to market. And think about what we're doing behind the scenes. We are trying to figure out every speed bump and every pothole before we actually get in front of everybody. And by the way, if the speed bumps and the potholes are too bad that we think it's going to create legal, financial, or any other kind of trouble, we might tell them, I don't know if we can help you. I don't know if we can make this happen, and here's why. But the most important part of our process is we developed a proprietary auction process. And think about this like having LeBron James being in free agency, right? Or Aaron Judge or any of these athletes in free agency. The way it works for those guys is they go visit the Lakers, the Celtics, OKC. They visit all these teams, presentations are put on, and then we start a bidding war. And our process that we do doesn't look a lot different, right? When we get down to the teams that we think can be suitors, we bring them in for an aggressive, tight, fly into one city. We have a specific way that we run those management teams, and then we have a specific deadline for them to put together their final bid. And so what we don't do is we don't list any businesses publicly. That's a joke. I would never do it that way unless you got like a ice cream shop on Main Street. Okay. And we do a proprietary auction process. And from the way that we do it, generally from what the owners ask us to guess, we've been about 30% above ask. So I just feel like we've got, between the buyer list we built and the way we do our process, we've been able to create a great outcome.
You get 30% over asking.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name's Michael Cato. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
That's amazing.
I think again, this is why I would never negotiate a deal on your own, because if you've never ridden in a hot air balloon and it's laying flat on the ground, you don't really know the best way to fill the air into the balloon. And when you make a deal, there's a lot of ways to increase enterprise value based upon your flexibility on how you build the balloon. And, it depends on how much you want to bet on yourself. It depends on how fast you want your cash. It depends on what you want your ongoing compensation to look like. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of variables, and a lot of owners don't think about this. And I think a lot of brokers that have never sold their own business, they might have sold somebody else's business, but there's a lot of emotions that go into it when you negotiate these deals. And I get it. When I sold my first baby in 2019, I was like, am I going to really go to work for somebody again? I mean, that's, so there's a lot to it, but I think we've been very effective at that.
It's such a huge moment in your life. If you have a business and you're going to sell it, you want to get the best possible outcome. It'd be crazy not to work with somebody, to be honest, to maximize that outcome,
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why a lot of times when somebody just knocks on your door randomly or does an email and you start engaging and it sounds good, I would get somebody around you, even if it's not us, because there's probably a lot more to it than you think.
Yeah. So with MAP, when we work with clients, we're sort of on the opposite end, right? We're helping them to grow their business and get in a place where they can sell if they want to. Some people love to hold on to their business forever, and that's great. But, maybe exit to a PE firm or to another entity. And, obviously we help them with the accountability systems and that operating system that you talked about. From your experience, how does that translate into valuations, multiples, or the deal process when they're looking to exit?
It's tremendously value. If I was to basically give you several buckets of importance when you sell a business, number one, do you have some sort of consistent organic marketing engine, right? Bad economy, good economy, whatever's happening in your industry, do you have a way to continue to drive top line revenue in the business? What you all are involved in is so vital, because one of the questions that a company is going to ask is, are you scalable? And if you scale yourself, there's no way to do it without standard operating procedures or consistent management systems, KPI dashboards, all that kind of stuff, which most businesses don't have, by the way. It's basically like, what's in the air today, and how does that work? But more importantly, the reason the things that you're doing are so important for businesses, the odds are if you're bought, the company's going to try to tuck other businesses into you. Great example is we sold a guy who was in the automated door systems business. He made sliding glass doors, motion access doors, and he became what's called to be a platform, right? Which is the main company they bought. The goal of the company was then to go out and in the Southeast US buy other smaller automated door companies. But if the parent company doesn't have a management team, standard operating procedures, controls in the business, it's going to be very difficult to integrate lots of bolt-on or tuck-in strategies, because everyone's going to have a different system, and that doesn't really help aggregate the business and make it accretive overall. So I think that there isn't a single business, small or large, in America that couldn't benefit from having a consultant come in, and I know there's multiple kinds of these in the industry, but help you build an operating system. The real mark of a successful business, people always talk about this, give it whatever time frame you want, but say if you left the business for a month, could it continue to run without you?
Right.
And if the answer is it can't, you failed.
Yeah.
You might think you've succeeded because you're making a lot of money, but it's not about that. It's about the scalability of what the business can do without you, not what it can do with you.
Yep. It's so interesting. You mentioned a few things that just struck a chord for me, because I was just talking to a woman who's built up a great business. She's doing incredible profit. Her EBITDA is fantastic, but it's so centered around her still. And I was like, look, you have to build it up to remove yourself. And I know it's your baby and you're crushing it, but you have to work on the systems and you have to work at replacing yourself, because a buyer's going to come in and say, well, I'm just buying you. Right? Like what's the business? There has to be something where they don't need you anymore. So if you can go, take your exit and ride off in the sunset, but if not, it's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad you mentioned that, because there are some businesses that are family businesses, meaning it may be a husband and wife or two married partners that work with each other in the business. And that can be complex about who stays, who goes. But if you have partners, sometimes they say the only ships that sink are partnerships. The reality is, if you're in partners, you really have to have defined roles in the business. And there are a lot of businesses that make money, but when you start digging into it, it's still like land of confusion. And as somebody acquires you, it's going to be really important to have an org chart, to be able to clearly identify who does what in the company. And this helps an acquirer better understand how they might infuse capital to gaslight the company and grow it. Because every company's got problems. It's just figuring out like, where's the biggest problem?
Yeah.
But if you can't explain the business and it feels like, something that's tough to understand, that could make somebody shy away from buying it.
I want to switch gears for a second. Let's talk about exit stage left. So what do you guys do for systems, process, accountability? How do you keep your team? It sounds like you're growing. You've got big plans for the future. How do you run your business?
Yeah,
what kind of systems?
I'm glad you asked. From having built businesses, every business you build, you realize that your emotions and intuition, it may be the tipping point on a decision, but businesses have to run on data. So it starts to me with you figuring out, and there are a lot of good ones, by the way, but what you want your CRM system to be. Like, how are you going to manage the customers and what's happening in your business? And I've used multiple systems. Right now, we use HubSpot. I'm not saying that's the best system or the worst system. A lot of people use Salesforce and other things like that. But you've got to have a way to try to have everyone have a common language about what's happening with the funnel in your business. So we teach people the funnel in our business that, we have the top of the funnel of generating leads. And then did we actually take meetings with people? Did they sign an NDA and give us some basic data on the business? Did we actually sign them to a customer agreement? Have we done the financial onboarding? And we have this process that we look at every week for 90 minutes as a team to basically say each customer, where are we at? What's our bottleneck? And then start tracking our statistics. Because after a year of business, this may be not a new analogy, but it's the one that I use with my team all the time, that if this right here was a bottle of beer and I was in a bar and somebody took another bottle and smacked the top of my bottle, it would make all the foam rise to the top. And that is a bottleneck. And what we're trying to figure out every week as a team is, where is our most improvable statistic and what's our biggest bottleneck? Because a business that says they don't have problems is a liar. The real question is, are you able to identify the crack in the dam quicker and figure out how to get it fixed? And then there's going to be another one. But without tracking that data, we have measurable statistics that we look at every single week, and then over an extended period of time to figure out sort of a macro, like what processes do we need to improve? And on a micro level, where are our immediate bottlenecks? So I just tell you at a high level on that, my first business with Oxygen, I was not near as data driven as I needed to be. And fortunately, I was 51% right on my gut calls, but I could have run a much better business had I gotten more locked in on process, and making decisions, not by how I feel, but what the information tells me.
Right. I mean, you're right. It has to be a blend of the two. You still have to have some intuition and some gut, but it should be driven by the data, right? You have to pay attention to those metrics. Yeah, I love what you're saying about the funnel. It's so true. What are the goals? So you mentioned, we talked a little bit about that earlier. So look 3 years out or 5 years out. What are you trying to do with exit stage?
So we finished the first 6 months of this year. We're not quite there yet at $250 million of closed transaction. With our pipeline, we should finish at 500 million of closed transaction. I've got a 2-year goal by the end of 27 to get us to a billion of transaction. It just sounds like a great number.
Yeah, it does.
The funny thing is, I really don't know if what we have now is a saleable business. I guess any business is saleable, but we won't really have any recurring revenue per se. Yeah. I'm sure people acquire these businesses, but it's so much fun that if we get to $1 billion, maybe we'll go to 3 billion or 5 billion. It's just, I think for our company, we look at helping founder-led companies that generally are, 2 million largely, 10, we could go as high as 15, but 2 to 10 million, founder led, family owned. That's the sweet spot.
2 to 10 million in EBITDA.
In EBITDA.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only ones that would fit revenue wise is if you have a SaaS model and it was growing, because you could sell a SaaS model that makes no money if you've got 50% year over year growth. That'll work. But if you have a SaaS model and it's not growing, no one's going to buy it, period. It's just not going to be worth anything.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if that's changing too. Like, it feels to me with a lot of these AI tools that I don't know, it feels like SaaS is going through a transformation where the barrier to entry is so much lower now that there's so much more competition. I just wonder if it's how that's going to impact, like you said, all right, you have a business that's growing, but you have no EBITDA, no profit. Is it still going to get valued the same way? Or are they going to discount it?
My hypothesis, and this is, what we share with the team at Exit Stage Left, is that AI is definitely going to have a place in a big way. We believe it will not nearly impact blue collar as much as it will white collar. And thus, in 5 years, if people could view us as like the micro dirty jobs broker, that would be unbelievable. Because I'm learning, even in the B2B world, there are all these obscure products. People manufacture parts, or they make padded envelopes, or they make hangers. They're the most unsexy of businesses. I talked to somebody the other day who traps grease. I know, right? You're like, what do you do? It's like, well, there's grease. Somebody's got
to trap it.
Someone's got to deal with it. And I would love to get us positioned not only in home services the way we're doing it, what I would call to be mission critical businesses like pest control, but all these other micro businesses, because I think they're going to have even more value because less people are doing them. And now you're starting to see people go back to trade schools. You're starting to see that the pendulum is swinging, and I think we're going to try to swing up into it.
Okay. I agree with you. I mean, if anything, I think that AI will improve those industries. I mean, even blue collar, right?
Yeah.
Where it's going to be an amplifier for that work, but look, it can't unclog my toilet. Not yet, at least. It can't do some of those things.
No, and it does do some cool stuff. I invested in a business recently here that are drone fruit pickers, and it's really quite fascinating. These things hover in the air. The sensors can tell whether it's a bad piece of fruit or a good piece of fruit. And literally with a little suction cup, it picks off the fruit and puts it in the truck.
That's incredible. Wow.
No, it's ridiculous. If people Google up later, drone fruit pickers, and you'll see what it is. And you're going to be like, well, okay.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm looking at one now, which is fascinating, that they're basically robotic skyscraper washers. The robots go up. They not only wash the windows, but they can pressure test which pieces of glass are weaker, so you can replace those pieces of glass before they break.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, and you're just like, where people come up with these ideas? But it's like, it's what you love about this country, is that every day somebody gets up, solves a problem, comes up with a great idea, and that's I'm energized by being around those people.
Absolutely. Well, we always ask people on the show if there's one interesting or unique thing that you do with your businesses, and you've had multiple now, that others might be able to take back and apply to their business.
Yeah. So I've been doing this for 20 years, but I try to teach our team about Parkinson's law. Don't confuse this with Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's law really talks about the time it takes to do a job is the time that you allot to it. Yeah. And so we are massive fans of trying to squeeze our staff into calendaring, and not the calendar, sort of you being the master of your calendar, but your calendar being the master of you. Like, what can you get done in 30 minutes? And this, for anybody who's watching this or listening, this goes back to you being a high school kid with a term paper that you didn't do, and magically the night before you got it all done. And that's because time got squeezed against you. So the principle we try to push into our team is squeeze time against yourself, and you'll be a lot more effective. Short blocks, calendared stuff. And I think it's how we get more done with less people, because we use that law, that Parkinson's law, to help people squeeze time.
How do you put that into practice with your team?
So I'm a big fan of what I call to be a no white space calendar. I know it's counterintuitive to some other pundits out there that say you should have 4 hours to meditate and stuff like that. That may work, but I can tell you that this works really well by getting people to block off everything they're going to be doing in the calendar by color code. And then literally saying, listen, you're not going to be asking what you're doing. Your calendar tells you what to do. If you think about it, that's time management 101. It's like, what does a calendar do? It tells you when to do it. Because you'll ask people, do you know what to do? Yeah. That's only half the question. The other half of the question is, do you know when to do it? Well, I got to get it done this week. Well, that's not really an answer. I mean, that's just an open-ended, maybe it'll get done by the end of this week.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do it on Thursday. Okay, now we're getting closer. Thursday when? I'll do it Thursday at 2. Well, let's put it in from 2 to 2:45 and put it in. And when you show up that day, your calendar says 2 to 2:45, I do this, and I think we just get a lot more done because we teach people how to be more effective with their time.
That's interesting. I would imagine most people do not do that to that level of specificity.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, of all the things in America that people say that are unequal, and there probably are a lot, time is not one of them. Time, in fact, is the only equalizer, because no matter age, race, color, religion, whatever it is, you got 168 hours. Nobody has more. That's how much time you have. So the real separation, to me, of more successful people isn't necessarily that they work harder per se, right? It's just who manages the time better. That's all we have. So I'm a huge advocate in our organizations of time management. Again, not saying somebody has to work 14 hours a day. It's not about that. You can work less time and be more effective. You could work more time and be less effective. It's just who can be more effective.
Okay. One last question for you. In the MAP community, in our audience, we have a lot of folks that in the home service industry, maybe family businesses, maybe they're potentially looking to sell. What would you say to those folks?
So the easiest thing to do is I created something. I want to do two things for the audience today. Number one, we have our own T-shirts that say, what's your EBITDA? And if you go to the website, what'syourEBITDA.com, what'syourEBITDA.com, I will do a free business valuation on your business from a street level, not something you're going to use in court or in a divorce or whatever it may be. I'm just talking, we know the market. I will tell you what the business is worth. And once I see the numbers, and you'll get a great T-shirt that'll make people love you on an airplane. What's funny is I wear that T-shirt in airports. Yeah. And if somebody comes up to me and they go, "What's your EBITDA?" I go, I don't want to hang out with you. I know. Right now,
you're not the guy for me. Yeah.
But if somebody comes up, they go, "I love that T-shirt, man." Then I know that I want to hang out with them. But for all the audience, if you're thinking about selling at all, go to that website. Let us tell you where we think it would be valued, and maybe we could talk further about helping you get the single best outcome. But if not, at least you'll have a sense. Okay, well, this fits within my financial plan, or it doesn't.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Ted. We appreciate it. Where can folks go to learn more about you, connect with you, or learn more about Exit Stage Left?
Yeah, easiest thing to do is you can just go to Ted Jenkin on LinkedIn. Just type me in. I got no S on the end of my name, so I'm the only one that's on there. Or you can go to esladvisors.com and check out the website. We work in all 50 states in the country. I've done business in Alaska and not Hawaii yet, but many other states. And we'd love an opportunity at some point, if it made sense, for us to represent you. And if you're a coach or a consultant in any one of those areas, reach out to me as well. I'm sure that we've got some business to send you along the way, because you do what you do best. And and we're trained snipers. We just know how to sell. That's what we do.
It's complementary for sure. Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.